recording of this to download the handouts and work your way through it. We're going to have you put some things into the chat as part of the exercises today. So be sure that you are ready to do that, because again, the more that you put into today's session, the more that you're going to get out of it. So thanks again for joining me today. So right at the top of the handout, you see what is content marketing? And it's creating and publishing content that is valuable and relevant to your audience with the intent to attract potential customers and then retain them. And so that's really what we're going to be focusing on today. What are some of the things that can do for you? Well, there's a lot of different things. It can help establish you as an expert. It can help you attract new customers. It can help you develop a loyal following, especially on social media, online. You can use it to generate repeat business and referrals from your existing clients. So a keep in touch marketing strategy is all part of content marketing. And it can help you create educated customers. And I have found over the last 25 years that educated customers are happy customers. So I try not to just give them the fish, give them the resume, but I try to teach them what to do with it. And so content marketing really helps with that process. But right now I can see you looking at me and saying, I am already overwhelmed with running my business and writing resumes. And you want me to create content too? I promise you, I'm going to give you some tools and resources today that are going to help make the process easy. And we're going to work on creating a content marketing plan that works for you, one that's realistic and one that you can commit to. So I want to run through the agenda of what we're going to focus on over the next 45 to 60 minutes, depending on how quickly I get through this stuff and how participative you guys are. So first, we're going to define some goals for your content marketing. Specifically, what are your priorities for using content marketing? Second, we're going to identify who you're creating content for. So who is your ideal customer that you really want to work with? Third, we're going to create that one-page content marketing plan. Step 4 is we're going to use that then to develop an editorial schedule. And then step 5, we're going to talk about how to keep the content going. And like I said, I'm going to give you some tools and resources and ideas to help make that process easy. So if you look at your handouts, the first step we're going to talk about is defining your goals. So content marketing is going to be effective at helping you get the attention of prospects, prospective clients that you might want to work with. It is cheap or it's free, which is great for resume writers on a budget. It doesn't cost anything or very little for you to get started with this as a marketing strategy. It's easy because you can create content based on the questions that you're already being asked by prospective clients and things that you've already created. And it's reusable and repeatable. So you can create this content once and then use it over and over again. So those are really some benefits of content marketing. There's 4 basic types of content that you can create or that you should create. The first is content for awareness. We call it awareness content. The second is content for lead generation. The third is paid content. And the fourth is relationship content. And we're really going to focus on that first one, awareness content today, because I only have an hour and you're going to find we're going to have a lot to talk about just with this. And with awareness content, if there's one thing that resume writers need, it's more clients. And so being noticed by prospective clients is the first step. So let's start with a self-assessment. And again, if you look at your worksheet here, that is under step 1, a content self-assessment. So we're going to ask you 4 specific questions I want you to think about as part of the content assessment. So the first one is, what content are you already creating now? If you are on social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, even TikTok, you might be already creating content that you're using for awareness. You might have some articles that you are already published or publishing on your website. You might be sending an email newsletter to your clients periodically or regularly, or you might just be doing one-off emails to folks. You might be writing blog posts or creating videos for content for job seekers. You might even be doing a podcast or sending out news releases. So let's take a look at where you're at right now. If you want to jot down some things under what you're creating now based on what I've talked about, what are the things that you're already doing? The second piece to look at in the self-assessment is how often are you creating content already? Do you post a couple things a day, maybe once a day or a couple of times a week? Are you trying to do weekly content, or is it just whenever you get a lull between clients and that's when you're posting content? So write down kind of on an overall basis how often you typically create content. The next one is, how do most of your clients find you already? And if there's one thing that I can encourage you to do, it's to ask your clients or your prospective clients how they heard about you, because that information is really useful for you in terms of going forward, doing more of what works, but also knowing where they're finding you can help you put more content where they're naturally discovering you. So if they're finding you from your website, you definitely want to put more content on your website. If they're finding you on LinkedIn, then you want to publish more LinkedIn published posts. Adding content wherever they are finding you is going to be a good strategy going forward. But if you don't know, because you're not asking, that's one takeaway that I really want you to do today. And then the last one is, what topic or topics do you want to be most associated with? So I loved the discussion about, what the RWCA is. Are we just resume writers? Do we do career coaching? Are we in the career development profession? Are we involved in career planning? What do you see yourself as? Do you serve a specific niche? Do you work with healthcare professionals or IT executives or sales and marketing? Do you work with folks at a specific level? Are you working with new college graduates or senior executives or folks that are mid-level in their careers? So where does that fit in there? Or do you work with folks who are at a specific stage of their career, return to work or career transition or their second act? So what do you want to be known as? And then the second part of that on the worksheet is, let's set a specific goal for what you want out of your content marketing in the next 30 days or 3 months or 6 months or the rest of 2023. So I gave you some ideas on the worksheet here, things like increasing revenue, and that can be a specific dollar amount, or it can be increasing your revenue in 2023 by a specific percentage over what you generated in 2022. It can be things like increasing your number of prospect inquiries. So using content to develop warm, prospects as part of the content generation strategy. Reducing the money that you're spending on advertising. If you're spending money to try and reach out to prospects, maybe shifting some of those dollars into spending some more time on content creation, especially in 2023. I know the cost of everything has gone up. I paid like $6 for a gallon of milk this week, which was just insane. I didn't think milk would ever cost more than a gallon of gas, but here we are. So maybe taking some of that money that you might have been spending on advertising and instead devoting some of your time. And so you want to maybe set a goal to do that. Or maybe getting more engagement on your social media. Maybe you post stuff on LinkedIn and you don't get very many comments or shares or likes. Same for Facebook and Twitter. So maybe you want to increase your engagement by a certain percentage. Generating media interviews and quotes. Again, content creation can help you with thought leadership. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later, but it can help increase your visibility and your credibility and maybe lead to media attention, either in Arizona specifically or in the specific niche that you serve, or maybe even national publicity. So think about what it is that you want your content marketing to do for you, because we've done a self-assessment to figure out where you are right now. The goal setting part of it is to figure out where you want to go with this. So we want to make sure that we're setting some goals so that we can measure your progress towards where you're going. So we're going to take a second here so I can get a drink of water. And in the chat, I would love for you to tell us, what is your goal for your content? Again, looking at the ones that I've listed on the handout, or whatever it is that has struck your attention based on what we've been talking about. I'd love to see you post in the chat what your goal or goals are for your content marketing, and be sure to quantify it, either a number or percentage or something like that. We're the shoemaker's kids. We're always telling our clients to do that, and we're the worst at it. So go ahead and do that while I take a drink here. And I want to apologize too for my voice this week. We did, most of you guys know, I'm a huge hockey fan, college hockey fan, and our playoff series went to 3 games, and I lost my voice entirely on Sunday. So it's coming back, but it's been a little slow. All right, Donna, 4 more clients per month. Love it. Again, very specific, very measurable, and also doable, because again, content marketing helps with establishing your credibility and visibility, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that. Who else has some goals we could talk about? Bueller. Oh, I think we're all old enough to get that one. All right, while you guys are still thinking, and like I said, some of this is going to be homework too, because you didn't know you were going to get homework from me today. But when we're talking about content marketing, the content that you create should align with who you want to attract and what you want to accomplish. So a big part of that is, oh, Jerry, retire by the end of the year. No, don't go. But with Donna's goal, which we're going to focus on here, a big part of that is figuring out, for those 4 clients that you want to attract, who are those folks and where do they hang out? So that's going to be part of the process too. So when we're using content as awareness, you can start by building trust with prospects. So when they read an article that you've written, they start to that process of know, like, and trust. It helps you attract prospective clients, because again, a lot of times job seekers, they don't necessarily come to us thinking, I need a resume writer. They're not sure if they need a resume writer. So the content that you write can help educate them on the process of what it is that you do when you work with job seekers. And all of us know we're not just creating a resume. In many cases, we're helping prepare those clients for the interview process, because we're helping them start to identify and articulate what makes them valuable to a prospective employer. And so when you're creating content, you're not just teaching them about, the resume, you're also teaching them about how they fit into that whole job search process. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. Content can also help you increase your opportunities to turn prospective clients into actual clients. So having a call to action as part of your content is really valuable. And I was looking at the profiles on your RWCA website, and the call to action for a lot of you guys is scheduling a call for prospective clients. So when you publish content, giving them that link to schedule it is a great way to turn somebody from just a reader into somebody who might be interested in working with you. So you always want to think about, with your content, what do you want someone to do after they've consumed your content? What's the next step for them? At the same time, content helps you build your reputation. And we talked about that, the idea of becoming a thought leader. And I'm not talking about becoming a thought leader, like Oprah or, that sort of thing, but becoming a thought leader for the kind of clients that you want to work with. And then lastly, it helps you build brand visibility. So becoming known so that when somebody thinks of the kind of work that you do, they think of you. So all of those are really important parts of the content awareness process. So I got another one in the chat. I'm going to see, I saw one more come through as I was talking here. Another goal. Rico, great. Generate 25 speaking engagements to groups or organizations. And actually, I think did I put that? Yeah, media interviews, quotes. Speaking engagements is another one that content creation is a great, outcome of. And this ties in perfectly with your next exercise. So in the chat, I want you to think about content influencers. So I want you to give me some examples of people whose content that you follow that helps you learn more about a specific topic. So not necessarily within the career services field, but just in general. And I'm going to give you a couple of mine. I've got 3 in mind. Oh, that's so sweet, Terry. Me. So for example, like in the financial education space and debt reduction, you think of Dave Ramsey. If you do any affiliate marketing or course creation, Pat Flynn of Smart Passive Income is a really influential person in that content sphere. And then one of my personal favorites in terms of like business inspiration is Marie Forleo. I absolutely love her book, Everything is Figure Outable. And so I follow her for content in terms of business inspiration. So think about who you think of, and you can put content, creators within the career space, Marie Zimenoff and, Wendy Enelo and Marie, Louise Kurzmark, gosh, little brain freeze there. Lisa Rangel, Donna Spy, Wendy Weiner, Tom Hauner. All of those folks are influencers within the career space in terms of creating content for content marketing. So I'd love to see, besides me, which is so sweet, who else you think of in terms of influencers in the content space. Tom Hauner. Donna's like, I can't remember Jillian's last name.
That's why I didn't either, but you know who I meant, right?
Yeah. Yep.
I don't think about their names. I just read them when they come past. I don't go to their sites. So it's hard to remember sometimes who they are.
Yeah. Well, and again, some of them are folks that you follow on Twitter or LinkedIn. Maybe they're just people that are friends in your feed, but when their content scrolls across your screen, you stop and consume it. So again, it have to be intentional that you're necessarily going out and finding it. But when it comes across your screen, you stop and read it because you trust the information that they're sharing. Right? Okay. All right. So when we're thinking about this idea of the topics that we're creating and who we want to reach, I want you to think about what are you already known for? Or what do you want to be known for? Because that can be a very intentional thing. Maybe you work with a specific type of client, but you want to shift and work with, maybe the next level up, or you want to specialize even just a little bit more. So that's one way to figure out, what kind of, folks that you want to work with. Another one is, what are your unique strengths? So there's a lot of resume writers that come into resume writing from their specific field. So, Wendy Weiner, you've got an attorney who's writing law resumes. You've got recruiters that came into career services because they've reviewed thousands of resumes throughout their time. So what unique insights or great experience that do you have that would be valuable to the clients that you work with? So that's a second point. And like I said, creating content is about thought leadership. It's not about having 100,000 followers on Twitter, but the right 500 or the right 200 folks that are really powerful for you, especially if they fit that profile of the ideal client for you. Because, like we talked about, awareness content directly impacts your reputation, your credibility, and your brand image. And it really can help you draw in the folks that you want to work with. They can follow you on social media, they can opt into receiving emails from you. It helps you with your search engine optimization, because the more specific you can be in the keywords that you include in your content, the more likely you are to be found when that prospective client is searching for a resume writer, just, starting on Google. It can help you, like we talked about, with attracting media attention. So if someone in the media is looking to interview somebody about a mass layoff, or a big company that's opening in your area, the content marketing that you do can help them find you. It can also establish you as an expert. So a lot of times, again, over the last 26 years with clients, you have clients that question you, as part of the process, because they're unsure or insecure about the job search process. But if you are known as, somebody who publishes a lot of content, you tend to get a lot fewer of those questions. I certainly have over the last, 10 or 15 years of my business versus the first, 10 years that I was around, which, as Rico pointed out, I was only 15. So, that's part of it as well. And then, like I said, one of the most important functions of your content marketing is to help you generate leads or prospects to work with you. So again, you've got all these things out there that are helpful, building your credibility and your visibility. But really what we want to do is help you work with more clients. So that leads us into step 2 of our worksheet, which is identifying your ideal customer. So now that you know kind of what you want to talk about, let's identify who you're creating content for. And I put this on your handouts, but it says the key to writing content that resonates with your readers is to know who you're writing for and what they want to know. And Lucy included this in the promotion for today, but it's something that I say all the time. Job seekers are hungry for information, so let's feed them. So the key is having a specific reader in mind as you're creating your content. We call this your ideal client or your avatar. And there's 2 key pieces that you are working to develop as you're creating this profile of your ideal customer. And it's listed on your handouts at the bottom of page 1. The first one is demographics. And so demographics are things like age and gender, economic situation, geographic location, job title, and profession. Those are all demographic criteria. Helps you kind of figure out when you're looking at somebody who that ideal client might be. The second piece of it, though, is psychographics. And that's figuring out who your client is from a psychological standpoint. What are their pain points? Where are they struggling in their job search? What are their dreams and goals? What are they looking for in their work with you so that they can get that dream job that they want? How do they spend their time? How do they spend their money? What's important to them? What are their values? What are their priorities? All of these things go into helping you identify not only who that ideal client is, but where they hang out, online. Are there specific groups that they're hanging out in online? Do they belong to specific associations? All of these things are going to help you not only figure out where they are so that you can get their attention, but also how to talk to them in a way that resonates with them so that they understand that you're the right person to work with. So we're going to do an exercise here. And again, it's the top of page 2 of your handouts. And I want you to spend just a minute or 2 here jotting down some ideas for content that you can create for them. So thinking about your ideal client, their demographics, their psychographics, what they want, who they are, what do they want to know more about? So what 5 things does your specific customer want to know more about? So it might be things like questions that they have about working with a resume writer, like how much does a resume cost, or how do I pick a resume writer? What's the difference between somebody that charges, $399 and someone who charges $999? What do I need besides a resume? How do I know if my resume writer is any good? How do I judge that in terms of the investment that I put into it? Is the goal for me to get, the job, or is it the goal for me to get the interviews? And again, we all know the answer is interviews, because that's the part we can control. Should I write the resume myself? One that just came up in the last month is, should I have Chat GPT help me in my job search? Should I use it to write my resume? Or I just read last night that LinkedIn is now going to be integrating it into like job descriptions and stuff like that. So what is the role of Chat GPT in the job search process? So I want you to think through what are some of these topics that you would want your ideal client to know. And so feel free to put that in the chat or write it down, like I said, in the little question section on your worksheet. And while you're doing that, I'll give you some ideas for where else you can get some ideas for content topics for your ideal client. So we talked about, where does your client hang out online? Go to Quora or LinkedIn groups or Facebook groups for job seekers, and look at the kind of questions that are being asked in those groups. You can also go to Google and start typing in something and see what the predictive text comes up with, because that's a good source of job search questions. So, how do I find a, technology resume writer, and see what comes in as you start to write. How do I find a resume writer who specializes in, whatever niche you're in? You can survey your existing clients. Oh, what you're supposed to put in the chat? Put in an idea or two of what you would want to talk about with your ideal client. What does your ideal client want to know? And so, like I said, I'm giving you some ideas on those topics, and also where you might find some of those ideas for your content. You can also ask on social media, and I've done this on my personal Facebook page in the past. I'll say, what do you guys want to know about the job search process or about resumes? Kind of an ask me anything approach. And so then I use that to come up with ideas for content. And again, specializing and targeting that content to my specific clients that I work with, which I work a lot with folks that are in, sales, and I call it MAPS: marketing, advertising, PR, and sales. So sales, marketing, advertising, public relations. So I might take a specific one of those questions that we talked about and then put sales into it. So, why is a resume for a sales professional $999? That sort of thing. And we talked about, too, using content that is not necessarily resume related, but related to the job search in general. So layoffs and hiring trends, growing industries, jobs that didn't used to exist, AI in the job search, all of those different things are not necessarily about writing a resume or, hiring you to write their resume, but about the job search in general. And Donna, great one. Can't I have a general resume I can use for all positions I apply for? Oh my gosh, I could write about that all day long. Jerry, how do I incorporate LinkedIn in my job search? That's a huge one. Again, a lot of folks are just really uncertain what to do with LinkedIn. I call that, I have a LinkedIn profile, now what? Because they get it and they put it up there and then it just sits. So teaching them how to do it, giving them activities that they can engage in daily or weekly to build their connections, to build their profile, is really useful content marketing content. How long is my resume good for? How often should I update it? That's a great one. And again, that's one of those things that we talked about when you're working on content for keeping in touch with past clients. That's a great topic for an email newsletter. How often should I update my resume? How often should I refresh my LinkedIn profile? All of those are great. Why can't I use a functional resume? Yes. The functional resume and ATS. All of these are great topic ideas. And again, can sometimes be overwhelming because you're like, I don't even know what to say. That's a whole nother workshop. But again, just coming up with these ideas, you can see these are questions that our clients ask us all the time. If you create content around it, not only are you helping educate prospects and clients, but you can point your clients to those resources and say, oh, I wrote an article about that, or I have a guide on that I'm happy to send to you. And all of that, again, helps build that reputation as a thought leader, as an expert for them. So very useful. You can also look at what other resume writers and career professionals are writing about. So I keep a list of what topics that I've seen covered, again, by colleagues, maybe in a different niche, maybe working with a different level of client. Maybe they wrote something for new client graduates, and I think, oh, that would be useful for a mid-career professional as well. So I keep a list of those. You can put your own spin on a very common topic, like I told this client that they should be on LinkedIn, and here's the reasons why. You can identify gaps in things that people aren't talking about. So maybe they're not talking about salary transparency. I was just at an event last night, and a guy was talking to the security guard, and I happened to overhear him, and he was talking about how much he makes as a janitor. And he said, oh, I really shouldn't, say anything. And I was the first one to speak up and say, there are salary transparency laws. You can talk about what you're making. It can help. So again, educating folks about things that they weren't necessarily aware of. And then tackling controversial topics like, this is not me, but, I'm a resume writer who loves Chat GPT. I am not, but I'm not a huge fan. But again, we all have to adapt. But again, addressing these topics that people want to know about, that they should know about, that they're asking questions about, all of these things are important in terms of the goals that we talked about earlier that are going to help you attract prospective clients and get them to know, like, and trust you. You can also do things like subscribing to emails and newsletters for either your niche or other content creators. So industry news, setting up Google alerts, Twitter lists, using hashtags to find like content. All of those things are going to be useful in terms of creating those topics that you want to create content around. And then we talked about making sure that you are measuring the work that you're doing. So as you are creating content, look and see what people are interacting with. What are they engaging with? What do they want to know more about? And do more of that content. So if you write an article about, do I really have to network, which is a great one, Jerry, then it might be a series like, should I network at my professional association meeting? Should I network with people that are not, in the field that I work with? I think I've said this before in the past, but a lot of folks that find me to write resumes come from my love of college hockey. They know who I am because of hockey, but because they know what I do, they come to me for resumes or job search advice. And sometimes I'm not the right fit for them. I'm currently updating an IT resume for a guy that is a hockey fan with me, and IT resumes are not my favorite, but he knows me from it. And so he wanted me to work with him on it, even though I told him he's going to have to educate me a little bit more about the words that he's using than I normally am used to. But again, networking isn't always about the people that are in the professional sphere with you. It's about the personal sphere. So could you write an article about, networking in everyday life, that sort of thing? You can also create storylines for the content that you're creating. So walk somebody through the whole stage of working with you. It starts with, the resume, but then they work with you on LinkedIn, and then, targeted cover letters, if you do job search coaching around salary negotiation, all of those different things can be an article series about how to work with you throughout each stage of the job search. So again, we're looking at content as a bigger piece of the education than just a single article about, how, how long a resume should be, that sort of thing. So what do I want you to do with all of these ideas now that we've talked about? I want you to create a list that you can use when you are starting to create content for your marketing, that you can just tap into and go to that list for ideas for where to start, because that's really going to save you a lot of time. And you can keep this list in a notebook. You could do a spreadsheet. It could be a Word doc. I personally use Evernote. I love Evernote. It's my online brain because I can't possibly remember everything, and it allows me to do keyword searches. So all of those are ideas for where you can keep the content, but I encourage you to really start with those 5 ideas that we did, but expand that into a much larger list, again, based on who it is that you work with. The next step then is, once you have these topics, what's the best format for it? And again, this really ties into this ideal client profile, because it has to do with where your client is online and how they like to consume content. So again, if it's a younger audience that you're trying to reach, TikTok is probably the place you want to be. I'm not on TikTok. I don't work with a lot of the new college graduates, but a lot of my clients are on LinkedIn. They're on Twitter. They watch YouTube videos. And so you want to think about not only what those topics are that you want to write about, but also where your ideal client hangs out and where they are and how they want to consume content. Do they read articles? Do they read blogs? Or do they prefer a podcast or a video? And then that, of course, has to align with what you're comfortable with. If you do not see yourself as a podcaster or someone doing video, how can you align what they want and how they want to consume it with what you want to create? Okay. Any questions as we've finished the first 2 steps? Because now we're going to get into the actual creating your content plan. And it's going to be pretty simple, but I want to make sure I answer any questions before we move forward. I'm going to grab another drink. Okay. So the next step on your worksheet, on the second page here, is we're going to do an exercise. We're going to walk our way through the 1-page content marketing worksheet. And like I said, this is fairly simple because we've talked through a lot of the stuff that you're going to be filling in here. So the first one is, what is your top goal? And like we talked about, Donna, yours is 4 new clients in the next month. On the worksheet here, I said 8 new clients in the next 30 days. So I want you to write down what that goal is under that first step. Give you just a second to do that. The second one is, what specific product or service are you going to be focusing on promoting? And again, you want to have something in mind as you're creating this content, because again, one of the most effective things about content marketing is having a call to action. So what do you want them to do after they've read your article or watched your video or listened to your podcast? And is there a specific service or product that you're going to be promoting? So, Donna, for your case, which of your services do you want them to focus on? Is it the resume and a cover letter? Is it resume and LinkedIn? Is it your salary negotiation coaching? What is that? So write that down as the second one. And I put an example of a resume and a LinkedIn package at $9.99 on the worksheet. The third one is, going back to what we just talked about, who is that ideal customer? What are their demographics? What are their psychographics? And again, this doesn't mean that you can't work with other clients, but if I were to say to you, I could wave my little magic wand that I've used before in presentations. If I could wave my magic wand over you and bring you your ideal client to your door, who are they? What do they look like? where do they work? What are their needs? Again, I put on the worksheet here, a mid-level sales manager with 5 to 10 years in a current role who's seeking a change to a different company. So what does that ideal customer look like to you? Write that down. Then number 4 is what content areas will you focus on? And like I said, in this one, it's awareness content. We're starting at the very top of the funnel in terms of attracting attention, and we're going to be creating awareness content. So that one's easy. Just write awareness content. Like we talked about, there's also lead generation and paid content, but we're focusing here on awareness. The next one is, how often will you commit to creating content? And I gave you some examples on the worksheet here. I'll post 1 new blog post a week. I'll post 2 new Facebook page posts a week, a LinkedIn post per week, or a video a month. What is it that you're going to commit to on this plan? And again, you can adjust it. You can always do more. You can always do less. But if I could ask you to commit to something, what is it that you are willing to do today? Commit to today, not necessarily do. So this is your content frequency. And then the last one on there is what metrics will you track? Which metrics will you track? So again, a big part of figuring out how to move forward is making sure that you are tracking what you're doing and measuring your progress towards your goal. So increasing your blog views to 100 per post, or growing your Facebook page followers to 50 in the next 30 days, or getting 25 video views on YouTube. Or like we talked about, Donna, with your goal, tracking the number of new client inquiries so that you can measure your progress towards getting those 4 new folks. So for example, if you are posting on Facebook, you can look at your insights if you're doing a Facebook page and see your post reach, your post engagement, your post impressions. You can track how many new people are following your page. You can see how many reactions, the likes, the thumbs up, or the hearts that you're getting on your posts. You can see how many comments that your content gets, if your content is shared, any views of any photos that you post with your Facebook post, and then link clicks. So again, if you have a call to action where you're asking them to click through to something, then you can track, or Facebook will track, that kind of engagement. So you always want to look at how are we measuring the impact of your content based on where you're publishing it. If you're using Facebook too, if your audience is on Facebook, you can also look at your insights to see a snapshot of all the content that you've published over the last week, or 28 days, or 90 days, and see if you are getting engagement on specific types of contents or types of posts. And like we talked about, you want to do more of what's working. So if you're getting engagement on something, you look at it and say, oh, what could I do to get more of that? If you're doing a blog post, you can look at the number of views that it got and the number of click-throughs. Or on YouTube, you can look at the number of views that your video got, or thumbs up or thumbs down, hopefully not thumbs down, and then the increase in YouTube subscribers. And it might take some time before you get results. So don't be discouraged if you post something you don't get immediate traction. The more content that you publish, the more your content will get traction. And you'll find even some of your older content gets resurfaced. And so as you grow your influence, you're going to find that overall your statistics grow. Any questions about the one-page marketing plan? Because now we're going to take it to the next step.
I have a quick question. If you, in terms of, you ask how often are we willing to post something? So if I post something, for instance, 5 tips on how to do A, B, C, D, can I then post maybe an affirmation or something else that's not as detailed as my 5 points, but something that supports it? And would that still be considered posting content, or does it have to be original and, you know, and all the
Nope.
rest?
Absolutely, you can work in other types of content, because like I just talked about, you also want to test what is getting the most engagement. So if you post a funny cartoon, or you post inspirational content, are you getting as much engagement on those as you are for your, career specific tips and tricks? And if so, you might want to make sure that you're, making a mix. If you're not getting as much engagement on those, how can you personalize that maybe more for your audience? So again, if I'm working with, mid-level career folks, I might post an inspirational quote about change and movement and things like that, and getting unstuck, and tie that into their job search. If you're stuck on your job search, take inspiration from Colonel Sanders, who started an entirely new career in his 50s, that sort of thing. So you definitely want to test and see what your prospective clients are engaging with, what is resonating with them, and do more of that. Or like I said, if you feel that you're always like lecturing at them by giving them, tips and techniques, lighten it up a little bit, and put some, Friday funnies, so that there's a reason for them to engage with you other than just, the thought leadership part of it. You're still a thought leader. It's just not necessarily, you're not always wearing your professor hat. Does that make sense?
Thank you very much.
Yep. All right. Step 4 is this page of the handout. You can see I started writing some stuff down even on mine. So the next step is using your 1-page content marketing plan. You want to take that and create an editorial calendar. It's also sometimes called a content calendar. And I recommend doing it in either a 3-month or a quarterly calendar format. The 2 pages that I gave you in the handouts is 1 month. It's 4 weeks, but you can of course duplicate that to build it out further. So if you're doing a quarter, now is a great time to be building your 2nd quarter content plan for April, May, and June. And your content calendar, your editorial calendar, includes things like what topics that you're going to be posting on, where to post, when to post, and then any resources that you need to round up. And we'll talk a little bit more about what those might be. In the promotion of today's call, I promised that one of the things that I would share is the most efficient way to post content. And the easiest way is to put it on your schedule. And again, I know that this sounds so elementary and so basic, but if you have a regular schedule for when you are especially creating your content, it's going to make it a lot easier for you to stick to this. I know a lot of resume writers and career development professionals use Fridays as their day for professional development and working on their business. You might make that also your content development or content organization day for brainstorming and content creation and posting the content or pre-scheduling it and then tracking your metrics. So the most important thing that you can do is to make sure you're scheduling time to do this. The second most important thing is batching your content. So take the time to do a bunch of content all at once. It's a lot easier, especially, we know as resume writers, sometimes you have to get into the flow. When you're working on a resume client, sometimes the getting started part is the hardest. It's the same when you're creating content for marketing. So once you get going, a lot of times you can find yourself in the flow and really get a lot done. So batch creating your content. So you're not just creating things one piece at a time, but you're doing a couple of different things at the same time. So maybe you brainstorm a list of content ideas instead of just coming up with one, or you write 2 or 3 articles at the same time, or you do a series of short videos that maybe you publish over the course of a couple of months, but you record them all on the same day. So you only have to do your hair and makeup once. And then the third key is scheduling your content, pre-scheduling it so that it's released on a consistent schedule. And you can use either the built-in schedulers for the platform For example, Facebook has scheduling tools built into it, or you can use a third-party tool, and there's a million of them. Hootsuite and Buffer and Social Pilot, Social Bee. There's a lot of different ones depending on what platforms that you want to schedule content on and your budget and, you know, how you want to schedule that content, what works best for you. You know, some tools are easier to use than others. One important point is if you like to pre-schedule your Twitter content, there are some changes currently going on with that and continuing to evolve because Twitter is now charging third-party services for access to their API. And so a lot of the third-party scheduling tools for Twitter are broken currently. So like I said, that's something to look at as well, as if there's a way to, you know, pre-schedule your content on the platforms that you're using. Any questions about your editorial schedule? Like I said, just a matter of filling in those blocks with the information that you are interested in talking about. Doing okay on time? All right. All right.
I do have a question.
Sure. Yeah.
Maybe I should have put it in the chat. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Articles. When you talk about writing articles, of course I know about blogs, but what other venues are most receptive to articles as opposed to just little blurbs?
So it goes back to two things, Donna. One is platform, and then the second is your audience. So where are your clients hanging out? I'm guessing a lot of your clients are on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn does do long form publishing for content. So that's a great place to put it.
People read it though?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, see, I never read any of the long ones. If it's more than 2 lines, I've passed. So
well, again, it depends on, think of it not as you, but think of it as
you're right.
Because there's things like people said when J.K. Rowling's did the Harry Potter books, that people said no one is going to read a 500-page book, and I can assure you, millions, you know, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people have read those books,
and kids too that don't like to read.
So it's engaging them with their content. If you are creating long form content that is organized effectively so that it's easy for them to skim if they want to skim, but get more detail if they want it. It has a great, you know, opening paragraph, great headline, those sorts of things. People will read it. So I always say, put yourself in the client's shoes, but make sure you're actually wearing their shoes and not our own.
So we're not going to talk about basket weaving if they're interested in why can't I write a functional resume?
Exactly. If you're not interested in writing a functional resume, you're not gonna read it. You're get past it. But the more content you publish, they also see your name. You're like, oh, there's that lady that is always writing about LinkedIn. So yeah, like I said, they're not going to read everything. They're not going to read, they may not read the whole thing, but again, it gives you that credibility and visibility that is important for when they have the need for working with somebody like you. You're the person that they think of. So that's another goal of it. But like I said, long form content, blogs, you can do it on Facebook even. And again, same kind of thing. People, if they're interested in it, are going to read it. Medium. So there's specialty sites where people go to find content, even, you know, posting articles in LinkedIn groups. LinkedIn groups kind of died about 10 years ago, but I keep hearing that they're, you know, zombies. They're going to come back any day now. But like I said, think about who your ideal client is, where they hang out online, and be in that place. And again, like we were talking about, it can be a mixture of short and long content. You could post a checklist and then a long article, and you could direct them to that long article at the bottom of the checklist. So you post, you know, your LinkedIn profile needs these 5 things, and then you put the 5 things, and then at the bottom of it says, if your profile doesn't have these 5 things, read this longer article about, you know, an explanation of what those 5 things are and why they're important in the job search. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. right. So the last piece, and again, we'll come back around for questions. We've got about just under 10 minutes. So I'm going to give you these tools and resources. And then if you have more questions, I'm happy to answer them. But one of the biggest issues, like I said, for resume writers is figuring out what they want to write about. And so it's the writer's block, not just for writing resumes, but also for writing content. So having that list of content ideas that you can turn to and get inspiration for that next piece of content that you're creating is going to be really useful. Here's some other tips and tricks though. And so I put them on page 4 of your handouts. So what content do you already have that you can leverage to save time? So instead of reinventing the wheel or starting from scratch, let's take a look at content that you've already published elsewhere. Can you expand on something that you wrote? Like we talked about that short checklist. Can you turn it into a full article? Can you excerpt something? You have a full article about, 15 things you need to do on LinkedIn. Can I turn that into, the top 5 things and make it a shorter piece of content? Can you convert something that you already had to a new format? So you take that blog post that you wrote and turn it into a video or a Facebook Live or a LinkedIn Live. Or can you reverse something that you already wrote? Like you should be on LinkedIn and then turn it on its head and say, why you shouldn't be on LinkedIn, and really get controversial there. Also look at content that you're already using with clients. So I do this quite a bit. I go back through my emails and see what questions that I've gotten from prospects and from clients that I can answer in an article that then in the future, when I need to answer that, I can just direct them to that, blog post or resource. So tips or instructions or emails or scripts, look and see what you've already created that you're working with clients in the work with your clients already and repurpose it. A third one is purchase content. And again, a lot of you guys are Be a Resume Writer members. I give you a lot of content that you can use with your job search clients. So again, we talked about a client who doesn't know what to do on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn, now what? Give them the LinkedIn 30-day challenge, and it'll give them specific activities and homework actions that they can take to build out their profile and their network and their connections and be more visible. So again, take content that you already have access to and put it to work for you. That's a huge thing that you could do. And then like we talked about, ChatGPT, take advantage of new tools and technologies. So things like you could ask ChatGPT, give me 10 ideas for blank. So 10 ideas for, job search articles, or 10 ideas for how to improve a resume. Like I said, you could ask ChatGPT, what questions do people have about the job search? And that might give you a list of topics that then you can write about. Give me a list of article ideas for job interviews or salary negotiation or whatever it is. So again, you don't necessarily have to use ChatGPT to write the content for you, although I'm seeing a lot of people doing that, but use it to give you ideas, especially for when you're stuck for ideas. I will put here, because Lucy had said to me, ChatGPT and AI, the people who are using ChatGPT to write their resumes were probably never going to be your clients to begin with. It's the same as if they picked up a Louise Kurzmark, Wendy Enelo Best Resumes book and we're using that. They are not necessarily your clients. The clients that you get and the ones that find you valuable are the ones that want somebody who is going to help them. And they can ask an AI chatbot a lot of questions. But again, as we've seen over the last 2 or 3 weeks, a lot of the information that is coming out of those is old information or inaccurate. I saw an article yesterday. It was like $10 million for them to train the chatbot the AI chatbot in a particular area. And so one of them was using content that only dated back to 2021. Well, look at how much has changed just in the last 2 years. So again, people want to work with people. People are still hiring people. Again, we're not to the point where AI is, conducting the job interview. Maybe they're helping narrow down the field of candidates. Technology has always been doing that. We've been dealing with applicant tracking system software for 10 plus years at this point. But when it comes down to it, I don't want to go to a doctor. It's the perfect one. Is it Progressive that the commercial has the white robot that's the insurance agent? I don't want my insurance agent to be a bot, a robot. Same thing with your doctor or your dentist. Again, you can automate some tasks, but in my work with clients, over the last 26 years, a lot of them don't know what they don't know. So they don't know what they would ask, the robot anyway. They're lost or they're stuck. And so they're open to and receptive to the idea of paying somebody to work with them because they're getting the support of a person who's going to give them, feedback and help and not just spit out, rote answers to them. So like I said, that's my little rant on AI. It's going to affect us, but again, resume software has been around for the last 20 years and it didn't stop, us from writing resumes either. Okay. The next piece is outsourcing content creation. So if you can come up with a list of topics and ideas and you know who you want to write it for, but you don't want to take the time or you find yourself stuck, look at Fiverr or Upwork or a virtual assistant who you can hand off the actual creation part of it. And again, if you have content that you've already used with clients or purchased through pass along materials, you can give them that as a starting point and then say, adapt it for my specific audience and post it in this place. Create a LinkedIn long form article for me on salary negotiation for a 6-figure sales career, for example. Content checklist, I put that on your handout too, right here. So the things that you want to think about when you are developing a piece of content is, can you find enough information about the topic? Usually that's not an issue. Is your topic of interest to your audience? So again, think about who you serve and what they want to know. Is it relevant to your business? Again, do you sell a service or a product that you can put a call to action for? There's some topics that are interesting, but they're not necessarily what you do. And so that might not be where you want to spend your time creating content. Does the content help direct your audience to the next appropriate step? Again, that's that idea of call to action. Is the content in line with your content goals and priorities? And again, you should be able to go back to your one-page content marketing plan. And that first one was your goal. Does it align with what you want as an outcome? And then is it timely? And do you have the skills and resources to create it? So again, if you don't, there's lots of resources that you can use to help you create the content. Like I said, Fiverr, Upwork, virtual assistant, all of those. And then the last piece is keeping your content and momentum going. So create that editorial schedule, even if it's just for the next 4 weeks, but ideally for a quarter. Put the activities on your to-do list, like we talked about the importance of scheduling it. Then reassess after the first month or the first 3 months. Is this working? 1 month might be too soon for you to start getting results because, like I said, the more consistent you are and the more you put out there, the more that your momentum will build. So you might look and see if it's getting the results that you want from the metrics you set. And if not, reassess. And then, like I said, the last one is, especially if you start getting more resume clients and you find you have less time to focus on the free and low cost content creation, consider outsourcing. And once you have a list of topics and who you want to reach, then now you'll have some examples of what you've done, and that'll make it even easier to outsource some of that work. Any questions, comments? We're right at the top of the hour. I don't have to go right away, but I know some of you guys do. Was this useful? Are you going to follow through?
Yes and yes. It was absolutely wonderful. Some of it is information that I knew in terms of how to do some of this, but to hear it again is just a nice reminder, and it will help, along with the forms, to be a great impetus to get it done, which is really, really great. I like the idea of the one-page marketing strategy here, if you will. And thank you ever so
Yeah,
much. I
and you
learned
organized it so well for us, and that's my thing is that getting started thing till you get into the flow. So I just never get started.
I used a system like this for probably 15 years, and it built and built and built.